Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Manufacturers race at Spa in Group 3 car. So for this race I'm driving the McLaren 650S, my first ever race at Spa in an FIA race in Group 3. We've obviously done Group 3 in a daily race, so this will be interesting how this pans out. Qualifying didn't go amazing, if I'm honest. We didn't get our bank lap, and then we mistimed our fuel burning and had to return back to the pits with 100% fuel and then get back out. So we basically started our lap with maximum fuel, but somehow managed to put in a pretty good lap with full fuel and put myself in P5. Was quite surprised by this result. Definitely a lot of potential in that McLaren at Spa. I think it had potential to get a 16.6, something like that, which would have put me right up there towards the front of the grid. So still pretty happy with that grid position driving the McLaren 650S. It could have been a lot better obviously, but starting from P5, there is potential in this race. Now, the McLaren, not particularly great at fuel saving. However, if we can manage to get in someone's slipstream at the start, we'll take that slipstream and try and see if it can carry us to the end with a bit of fuel saving. So starting, you can see straight away, into fuel mixture 6, trying to do a little bit of fuel saving at the start while we're on the auto drive. One problem with Spa is it does tend to spread people out after the chicane going down this straight. So you do have a little bit of field spread. It's not a massive amount, but it is enough to cause a little bit of gap between drivers. You can see I've nearly already lost the slipstream to P4 because of the field spread from P4 to P5. I think P1 to P2 is also a similar issue. However, you're just about getting the slipstream and trying to make my braking as late as possible into turn 1 to get back into that toe. I've actually outbraked the car with the cold tyres and lost the slipstream to Matty there in the pole. So that is quite critical. So this is going to be a bit of a problem for myself. I really needed to stay in slipstream. Tried to go flat out there with the cold tyres, and again we've picked up half a second penalty there because we tried to push to see if I could get in that slipstream, and now we're in a pretty bad situation at the start of this race. We haven't lost a position, however you can see that the gap to the leader, nearly 4 seconds. We've got the gap to P4 is over 2 seconds. I really need that gap to be about 1.1 to 1.2 seconds to be able to stay in the slipstream, because he's also picking up the toe from the cars in front. However, we're going to have to get rid of this penalty. So strategy for this race, the fuel saving strategy that I really wanted to go with in terms of just sitting behind cars and saving some fuel, is pretty much out the window. I'm going to need to go quite aggressive in this race now and push. I do like driving like that, I much prefer it. However, at the pit stop it's probably going to cause me a little bit of added time. Also, I think people get too obsessed with fuel saving. I think that this race would have been faster if all the drivers push, then it would have probably been a much faster race. But I think drivers kind of think, well, if he's pushing, I'll just sit in his slipstream, and then the driver in the lead will know that if he pushes, the car behind is going to save the fuel behind him. So you end up with this situation possibly brought on by the strength of Gran Turismo slipstream. It's one thing I think that does need to alter. They are listening. There are some changes for the new season in FIA. Some qualifyings are shorter, some are longer, some are the same as they are. So fuel burning is definitely still going to be there. Some races it won't be there. So it'll be interesting how these races are done in top split, etc., in terms of whether people will fuel burn still, or some races they will. Some people will be burning for fuel more so in some races. When we come into the final corner now, you can see that gap obviously increasing when we're in the slipstream. We managed to gain through the corners because I'm obviously pushing a lot more aggressively. I've got no more cars in front of me, so you can see the gap came from 2.4 down to 2 seconds, and then as soon as we're back on the straights we start losing that toe to the car in front, and we've also got to get rid of this penalty. So without that penalty we might have been able to get in the slipstream fairly quick. However, I need to get rid of that penalty. We've got the Jaguar behind us as well. That's going to probably be able to get past us once I take this slipstream as well. Let's just see if he manages to get past as we go through a Rouge this time, and Medallion trying to make sure that we do not make the same error. This time doing it much better there, nicely over the top of the hill and keeping that car 100% within the limits. And now we're going to have to take that penalty. So let's just see how much this affects us. We should only lose about 9/10 to maybe a second as that Jaguar straight back pass, and this is really frustrating. Obviously Nick now ahead of us. I think my car was a lot better through the middle sector than the Jaguar. I think the Jaguar wasn't particularly strong around Spa. Obviously quite strong down the straights, but through the corners I don't think it was one of the better cars at this track. So now in this situation we're in a position where, do I push or do I save fuel behind P5 in that Jaguar? I decided that I felt like I needed to push because I wasn't 100% sure if that Jaguar will be able to get back into the slipstream with the cars in front. And I feel like the slipstream is so important at this track. You really need to get in it to be able to keep pace with certain other cars. So you're going to see me being quite aggressive. I want to get past as soon as possible. I'm not worrying too much about fuel. At this stage, we're doing a bit of fuel saving because you can't really get an overtake done at this point in the track. This is pretty much single file drive, and unless you got the car alongside in a braking zone, then you can go for a move. But at this point, there's no point really wasting fuel. However, now I know that this is going on to the back straight. You can get a move done going into the chicane or earlier if you manage to nail these corners. So really aggressive through here, getting the car into the apex. McLaren was actually really strong at some of the corners on this track. You see the acceleration I get out of that corner. The indicator goes on that Jaguar. I think he's just willing to let me go and probably sit in my slipstream to save his fuel and let me drag him forward towards them cars, because the McLaren it's not really got the best pace when you're doing fuel saving. So the best way to drive this McLaren, I feel, is just push with it and go aggressive. You will use up your tyres a bit more, but I think it's the way to go with McLaren, the 650S. The next race in the new season is going to be very interesting at Suzuka because there is no fuel saving. However, the tyres are going to get absolutely annihilated, so that will be very much a fuel saving race as we now skip to the end of lap 3, and you can see how close we're getting to picking up that slipstream. 2 seconds away from P4, going through it, really pushing aggressively to try and get in that toe, and you can see almost managed to get into the slipstream there. It went down to 1.5, just over 1.5 seconds, and that is the distance you need to pick up the toe. So driving very aggressively on lap 3 there, and now through turn 1, trying to get the power nicely, and you can see we've actually managed to just about get in the slipstream, and that is great for myself because these cars in front are short shifting. I can now push while I'm on the slipstream to get into that slipstream a bit more, and then we can start doing a little bit more short shifting now that we're in that toe before the pit stop. So obviously the tyres are going to be feeling a little bit worn at this stage because I've obviously drove them quite aggressively on them opening 4 laps. However, we've managed to get back that vital slipstream in this race, and we can start just holding back a little bit now. You can see into gear 6 down that straight, and you can see the advantage that gave me instantly, up to 165 miles per hour in 6th gear. So with that slipstream, this car is actually pretty strong in 6th gear, but without it, it suffers with 6th gear. 6th gear is a very weak gear on this car when you've not got a toe. However, now that we're picking up that slipstream, we can start doing fuel saving, we can start saving the tyres a bit more for these last few laps before I pit, and just try and stay in this battle for the win. So we're still up there with a chance of maybe coming away with a very good result in this race. We obviously qualified in P5, and we're now still in P5, and we're back in the slipstream. The only problem that's going to come into play is when we pit. Some of these cars up ahead have probably been doing a lot of fuel saving. We know how good the Porsche is with fuel when it's short shifting. I think the Corvette was up there as well. The Corvette is a brilliant car for saving fuel. The Audi, I think, is slightly better than the McLaren, although that Audi is in the lead. So that Audi's probably been just driving and carrying everyone through this race. So the Audi's probably going to be also in a bit of a situation with the fuel. Maybe not so much as much as the McLaren, purely because the Audi, I think, is a very strong car around this track. So he's probably been able to save fuel through certain areas of the track. However, still probably in a bit of a situation compared to some of the other cars in this top 6 battle. But very close racing, you can see. A lot of cars still in this battle. You can see that 6 cars in this slipstream train for the lead of the race, and also just behind P6, I think SDL Sonic there in the Mercedes is not too far off as well. So this will be interesting. Will anyone go for an early pit stop? It looks like no one's gone in the pits that time. Has anyone behind gone? It looks like SDL Sonic actually went into the pits for a very, very early pit stop. Now, that could pay off in terms of an undercut. You might get a bit of an undercut and help your race out there. However, he's going to be suffering slightly with tyres. However, I think he's driving for Mercedes. Mercedes is one of the strongest cars on tyre wear, so that might be why he's gone for that undercut. It'll certainly be interesting to see where he comes out after we go for our pit stop. I'm going to have to go for my pit stop at the end of this lap. There's no way I can probably do 6 laps on my first lap because I've had to drive the tyres quite aggressively on this opening stint. Even though, if you look, the tyres are not actually looking too bad, but I think 6 laps of heavy fuel would be pushing a little bit too much. As you can see there, having a little look at Matty in front in that Porsche going into the braking zone after the long straight, obviously picking up that slipstream. The McLaren quite strong compared to the Porsche once we're in the slipstream, so quite decent pace, and you can just see how close this racing is getting and just how amazing this game looks. Look at this, absolutely insane driving going on here. We've got 6 cars all within 1.5 seconds of each other. This is crazy racing before the pit stop, and this is one of the reasons why I would like to keep tyre. I know that we all go on about tyre wear and it's a bit too high. However, I do like the tyre wear in races, because I think if we go to a situation with really low tyre wear, I think the field spread will be much higher, whereas we get situations like this, and when you've got the strong cars in qualifying, they'll fade off, and then we have the cars that are slightly better in tyres and people that maintain the tyres, grouping everyone back up, and you have situations like this. Just look at this. This is insane. We've got 6 to 7 cars battling for the lead in this race, and this is why I kind of like the tyre wear. When people start struggling with a bit of tyre wear issues and it all groups up, you have more opportunities for overtaking where people are more likely to make mistakes. So I don't mind tyre wear as long as it's not too exaggerated. I think Suzuka in the next round is getting close to being a little bit too strong, because I think it's on the soft tyres, and we're going to be running obviously times 12 tyre wear, which seems quite high. This race wasn't quite as high as that, I don't think, and we're on medium tyres as we go into the braking zone. Trying to have a little look here. We're going to have to go in the pits, so you can see a lot of people dart off into the pits. Matty in the Porsche goes for a different strategy. He's going to opt out and try and do 6 laps on that first stint, then 5 on the next stint. Obviously the Porsche very, very strong on tyres, and what you can see there is, look at everyone's fuel, 4 to 5% more fuel than myself. However, that isn't going to take very long to fuel up. So if you have a little look, tyres are on, and now the fuel's going in, and just look, it's only a matter of what, 1.5 seconds extra in the pits, maybe something like that. We've not lost out massively there in terms of the pit. We have lost out a little bit. You can see SKL Sonic has got the jump from us. However, that is possibly going to help me. Can I manage to stay in the slipstream down the straight? We're probably going to just about lose it, but I would rather have that fuel and be able to push back up to the drivers in front, and then have a bit more fuel at the end to push as well. So it's kind of one of them. Do you just go for the fuel saving, or do you just take an extra few seconds in the pits and be able to push 100%? I'm starting to go with the feeling that it's probably better just to go in. If you've got a gap, definitely to the driver behind, just push 100%. I think a lot of people get too obsessed with the fuel saving, so that is something to take from this race. That the driving 100% approach, I think, definitely still works on this game, even when you've got fuel involved with these races as we go into mixture 2. While we're on our outlap, now obviously on this stint we need to be a bit more cautious on the tyres. I can push, the fuel is lighter, however we have to do 6 laps on this stint, so I'm using mixture 2 on this opening lap through some of the corners. One, to save a tiny bit of fuel, because I still need to consider that I did a bit of fuel saving when I was in that slipstream, but also because we don't want to spin the tyres up too much while they're fresh, because when you do that, I find that it kind of has a knock-on effect throughout the race. So as soon as you take a bit of life out of these tyres, you find that you start taking even more life out of them every lap. So you want to try and look after them so that they preserve them longer. If you take a big chunk out at once, you kind of destroy the tyres, because then you're more likely to spin out of every corner. You're more likely to get more rotation on the rear where they're going to slide. You're more likely to overdrive the car, and it all becomes a little bit messy, and then you kill your tyres. Whereas if you just take it smoothly, look after the tyres from the start, you will find they'll be a lot nicer towards the end of the race. So you can see that gap is at around 1.6, 1.9 seconds, something like that. So we're outside the slipstream 100% at this stage. However, I wasn't too worried, because I did know that Matty would have obviously been quite slow on his lap, and then he's obviously going to put in not going to need to refuel. However, he would have lost a bit of time, so he's going for the fresher tyres at the end that will help him out. I'm going to probably come out the pits. He's probably going to come out the pits just in front of me. Let's have a little look now as we go through turn 1 into the braking zone, down into first gear, trying to make sure we hit the apex then on the power nice and early. You can see that Matty has come out right in front of me, and this is going to give me the slipstream, which is perfect, because now I've got a slipstream partner to carry me forward into this battle. You can see that P1 has got a bit of a gap there, but will his tyres last to the end driving like that? It'll be interesting to see. But you can see there's a penalty up ahead. Someone has got that half a second penalty for over jumping the top of the hill. So that is what I got on the lap 1, and that is going to affect him and bring him back down a car or two, because it is such close racing in this race. Everyone is so compact and close together. This is going to be really interesting. Now that I've got the tow, I've got the fuel to push, the fuel is looking good, I can drive this and try and get a decent result out of this. This is going to be really interesting with so many cars involved with this battle. You can see that we've got 7 cars fighting for the lead. Arciafo a little bit too far behind there, 3.4 seconds. I think that he might have put a bit more fuel in, possibly to push even more aggressively. I'm not 100% sure. However, when we start getting in situations like this, you're going to find that if we're all battling, it's going to bring even more cars into the battle as well, because like we saw on that first stint, when you're in clean air, you can still gain on cars that are in the slipstream purely because they're going to be fighting each other, especially into the heavy braking zones like the final chicane and turn 1, where you need to be heavy on the brakes and cautious that you don't hit other cars. That is where they're going to be a lot slower, and what we're going to be losing time compared to people driving along on their own. As you see that Porsche kicking up a bit of dust there, getting very close again. AFO also kicking up a lot of dust there, getting very close to running out wide. And you can see that gap there on this replay camera. It's definitely around, I think it's around 3 seconds still, so comfortable at the moment, not needing to worry about the cars behind. But what you can see in front is that there's going to be a lot of racing left in this race, and we still got opportunities. We're down into P7, however, I think I would rather be in P7 for the sake of fuel to push and get overtakes done than in, say, P4 with no fuel. And you see, I think there's SDR Sonic with that penalty. That's going to be an issue as Nick goes over the chicane and jumps it slightly. I think that's going to be a penalty. 2-second penalty for Nick, half a second for SDL driver. This is looking better for myself. I should be able to jump up into P4. We're going to go for an overtake on Matty around the outside. Will I be able to make this work? The McLaren should have a little bit more drive out this corner with this line that I've took, and we've managed to get ourselves up into P6, and we've got 2 cars in front of us with penalties, so we could be back up to P4 very shortly. This has worked out very nice on the course of that lap and the start of lap 8 as we go up the hill. Got a little bit aggressive on the curb there, but got away with it, and now we go down the main straight here, getting very close in that slipstream. They're going to take their penalties. We should get past both of these cars here. As you see, penalty taken by Nick, and the Mercedes obviously drops out and loses a bit of time, but he's going to tuck into my slipstream. Will they be battling behind? No, Matty doesn't get that move done. But now into P4, and we're just outside the slipstream at the moment to P3, but will we be able to get back into that tow? I can obviously push and try and get back into that slipstream. That is the good thing about the fuel situation I'm in. I will be able to push 100%. I don't think all the cars in front have got the fuel to drive it 100%. However, they're going to be in a situation where on the straights they're going to get that slipstream, and we're then going to be suffering a little bit behind. It's going to be interesting how this pans out over the next few laps. Will I be able to use the power that I can use through the corners to get myself through these corners a little bit faster and more aggressively and get back in the slipstream? You can really see it working there as we're in the power zones and they've got the gap up to 2.1, and then through the corners you're going to see that gap come down, so you can see instantly down to 1.9. Then are we going to get it even closer? You can see I'm really I'm driving maximum here. I'm pushing the 100%. I want to get back into that slipstream. You can see getting to 1.6, 1.7, but then we're going to get to the power zone, and what you're going to see now is, because they're all on the slipstream, that gap is going to go probably over 2 seconds. So all that hard work through the corners is going to be lost, as SDL Sonic seems to be struggling a little bit, possibly with the tyres and also with fuel. I'm not sure if he's got the fuel to push 100% behind us there, as I'm actually increasing the gap on the certain parts of the track. Obviously now that he's in the slipstream on the straights, he's able to gain a little bit back, but things are looking okay. We're in P4. Can we try and fight for this podium position? It is looking like we might be able to. Nearly getting in the slipstream there. You can see I really went in aggressive, got it down to 1.5 seconds, oh so close to picking up that slipstream for this long stretch down to the through Rouge and Redalion. That is where you want the slipstream, going at the top of the hill there, so you can gain the time down the straight. You can see again 1.5 seconds, half a tenth away from picking up the slipstream to the cars in front, and that is really, it was so close. If I got that slipstream, I might have been able to gain a bit of speed through it. However, it is going to be a bit easier through this section without the slipstream, but then now at the top of the hill, this is where you really want that slipstream to be able to boost down in the McLaren. The McLaren needs that slipstream for 6th gear. You can see as soon as I put it in 6th gear with this car, you see how I'm revving it out in 5th gear. I'm just deciding to rev it out and use up the fuel, because as soon as you're in 6th gear, the car just dies. It's literally got no power unless you've got a bit of tow to drag you along. So now into the handling section, can we try and get into the slipstream through here? They're all battling up ahead. This is going to get very close. You can see almost 3 by 3 up in the head between the leaders. Insane driving going on here, and now we've got that vital slipstream. This is going to be very important. We have Matty now behind us on much fresher tyres. Don't think he had the fuel as much as what I had to push 100%, so this is going to be even more interesting. We've got a lot of different strategies at play. We've got people with different fuel levels, different tyre conditions, and different cars as well. It really does show you that Group 3 is actually quite a good class of car in terms of BOP, because I think everyone in this top 7 battle is in a different car, and that's really interesting to show that Group 3 is actually not too bad overall in BOP. I think it's a pretty decent class of car on Gran Turismo. Now you can see we only have just over 2.5 or 2 1/3 of a lap to go. can we get ourselves into that P? I really wanted to win in this race, if I'm honest. I love Spa, it's one of my favourite tracks. I don't think the 650 was the best car for overall tyre wear and everything. However, the 650S is definitely underrated at certain tracks. It feels very nice. I think personally they've made some alterations to this car to make it a little bit better in terms of the default setup that's being used, because it feels really strong through certain corners. I think it's definitely a better race car than the qualifying car, very similar to the McLaren in Group 4. However, it does suffer with a little bit of rear tyre where you have to pay attention to them tyres. We went for a move, then got cut off a little bit by TRL Perpy, and he's actually going to get a 2-second penalty. A little bit aggressive on the penalty system for him. However, I was ahead going into the corner on the left, and he didn't really leave me much room to go around the outside and cut back on the apex, so he did cut me off a little bit. So 50-50 on that one. I think it was a bit aggressive, but I can see why the game did give the penalty, because he didn't really give me any space at all. So unfortunately for him, he's going to take that 2-second penalty, and unfortunately for me also, in that battle where I've had the contact from Perpy, I've lost out to Matty. So trying to get ourselves into P3 and end up in P5. However, we're going to get the P4 back now, so we're still involved with the battle. That is a good thing. As you see Perpy there, he's going to lose a lot of time with that 2-second penalty. He's out of the battle now. He's going to lose the slipstream, and I think he needed that slipstream with the fuel on the forward as we go a little bit aggressive into the braking zone. Just about managed to hold it on the track and just about managed to stay in the slipstream range. So now we need to regroup, try and settle down and push again to see if on these last few laps if I can try and fight to get myself into that podium position. It looks like P1 is starting to look a little bit more little bit stronger than that Corvette in P2. It looks like maybe the fuel, he's got a bit more fuel to push. The Corvette may be struggling for fuel or tyres. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it definitely looks like P2 is starting to have a little bit of struggles through some of these corners. But Matty in front in that Porsche, obviously the Porsche very good on tyres anyway, has got 1 lap fresher tyres as well. So Matty looking very good. I need to get back in that slipstream. You can see I've actually lost that slipstream through there, but I think that we're going to be able to get that back fairly quickly, because that Corvette definitely doesn't seem to be having the best of it in terms of tyre wear at the moment. It could be fuel also. Maybe he under-fueled to try and get a jump on people, and now it's kind of suffering a little bit as he's not able to drive it maximum through here. But again, are we able to get in the slipstream? We're in that slipstream now, I think, just about, and now I can try and push all the way down the straight and get myself in a position to maybe go for a move somewhere on one of the long straights. It's going to be really interesting how this last lap pans out. You can see that P1 has got this covered. He's got nice clean air. I think he's got the fuel to push inside. Run a little bit wide there. That's going to give me dirty tyres. Had to brake very early into the braking zone. You can see how early I braked. Nice and smooth through here. We don't want to spin it up. That's where you're going to lose the time with the dirty tyres. Trying to get on the power. You're going to see the rear spinning up. Look at that. No traction at all because of the dirty tyres. But luckily, managed to hold on the slipstream as Matty gets himself up into P2. I'm going to go into the braking zone here now. Should have the tyres cleaned up just about. They do seem to take a little bit longer to get up to 100% grip again after running off the track, but they seemed okay there in turn 1. And now we're going to push all the way down the hill. Are they going to go side by side through there? This should help me out in terms of getting the slipstream. You can see we're in that tow, 1.3 seconds behind. Now we can push all the way through here. Why they've took that very weird line through there. They've obviously been fighting. Now the Porsche isn't going to have the grunt of the Corvette. And look at the slipstream I've got down this straight. We're going to get very close by the end of the straight. Over 165 miles per hour into the braking zone, but not close enough to make that move. Without that, without picking up that dirty air, we could have been in a very good position to go for a move at the end of the straight there. If we just didn't get that the tyres off the track on that final, before the final chicane on the previous lap, there may have been an overtaking opportunity. But now in this race, we're just going to try and find another place to get ourselves on the podium. I really wanted the podium in this race. I knew the McLaren was capable of getting it, and now we go through these corners trying to get on the power nice and early. Rear stepping out. Look at the rear grip. The rear grip is starting to fade now. We're on the 6th lap on these tyres. They are starting to struggle. I am pushing 100%. Obviously got the fuel to push, so the car is crying out for a new set of tyres, but we can't give them a new set of tyres on the final lap, obviously, as we get into the braking. So you see Matty is going to try and get himself back into P2, but just, is he going to try and hang it round the outside? What a brave move that'll be, and an excellent move by Matty. Unfortunately for myself, had to get on the brakes kind of there as Nico, obviously with the slightly out of sync on the lines that he took through there. And again, Nico really seems to be struggling with tyres or fuel or something, as we've got so much more grip. And again, on the power, trying to find the way past. You can see the rear nearly snapped on me there on that right hand corner. It just wanted to lose grip. But what an amazing race this has been. Thoroughly enjoyable race. can we go for a move? You can see I backed off the throttle a little bit here, trying to give myself a little bit of a gap going through this left-hand corner, just to see if we can carry more speed. However, it didn't work out. You see, so close P3 to losing it there, and then into the braking zone. Can't really go for a dive there. Had a little look on the outside to try and get a better exit off the final corner now, but again, not really able to do much there. Trying to put the power down, the grip is not there on the tyres, and we come over the line with a solid P4. It could have been so much better. I think without the penalty at the start, it might have worked out, but unfortunately, P4 we have to take from this race. A thoroughly enjoyable race, so I think you'll have to agree. Some great racing going on in there. A lot of close racing between a lot of different cars. Just look at the variety in that top 6-7 position. So really nice to see that, as usual, in Gran Turismo in Group 3. The BOP seems to be pretty solid in Group 3. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you hit that like button, and also if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that notification button. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I'll be back very soon.